Welcome to the RTF Show. We're back. Trials and tribulations this week, though. Your boy caught the bug. I'm officially COVID positive. Hanging in there, though. I'm not gonna lie, shit's no joke.
Let me ask one question though.
John,
are you immunized? Are you immunized?
I am. I thought I was immunized. I got a shot. I got a shot in the arm, and it did. Hopefully it helped. But not immunized in the way that Aaron. Well, I guess maybe I was immunized in the way that Aaron Rodgers was. But besides that, we're back. It's trade deadline week. We're here to go over everything we've got that went down this week. It was a busy-ish trade deadline. I don't know that it was quite as busy as last year, but there were some moves to be made. We'll get into those. I made some. You made some, and we'll break those down. But before we do that, we do got to acknowledge, and we'll do this very briefly. A couple things from last week.
Yep.
First, last week was a contest week. We had the Bourbon Street contest. As a reminder, the Bourbon Street was who get the most TDs in a week, and the winner was
the Alpha Peter. He put up 7 TDs. Including one from his defense, which I think got him the win over Kelly, who had 6 TDs, which we'll review that game briefly here in just a second.
Yep.
She had 6, and then Sullivan and I, so the 3 biggest sellers of the week, had a great week with Sullivan and I had 5 TDs, and then on the very far end of the spectrum, just wanted to point it out there, Bill and Alec only had 1 TD apiece. So not going to get it done.
Yeah, let's jump to Kelly real quick. Kelly had a huge week. It was a weird fantasy week, I think, in general. Scores were
football
down.
Week. Yeah.
Weird football week. Scores were down across leagues. I think, in every league I played in, it was a pretty low scoring week for most teams. And that was reflected in the RTF, in the RTFL for sure. But there was one team that was unbothered by it. It was Kelly's team. Kelly put up a monster showing, which I'm sure made the decision to sell off that much more difficult. She put up 114 points to my 90 and came away with their 3rd victory this season.
It was interesting. She had already sold Amari Cooper and Elijah Mitchell at that point.
Yes.
And so she made a few more moves, yesterday. And so we'll get into those. But yeah, to put up that amount of points, which still she's in last place in her division, but she's tied in wins with Ken and only 1 win behind Charlie at this point, and has by far put up the most points per game in her division. I'm looking at points against there. She has put up the least amount of points in her division, so maybe selling is actually a very good idea.
Yeah, but Kelly was buoyed by 2 players this week. It was really the James Conner show, putting up nearly 40 points. More, popping off the week on Thursday night with 24. Definitely had me worried, and it just went downhill from there. All right, let's move on. We had a few other big matchups this week. I'm going to share my screen here. We'll take a look at a couple of them. Most notably, I think, would be Well, I mean, where do you want to start? You want to start with Josh?
Yeah, I think going into week 9, Josh was a game behind you and needed a win, and equally on the other side of the game here, we had Ken, who also desperately needed a win to potentially move ahead of Charlie or at least keep pace with him. And Josh came out ahead there. End up with your loss, moving into a tie in the division. Looking at tiebreakers, it's still you leading the division, but you guys have the same overall record. And then Ken drops a game to Charlie, who blew out Bill with a score of 84. So, Josh, who we talked about him all last week on the show, making great moves, manager of the year so far, follows up all of those awards with another win, which that's what it's all about, getting W's, and he continued to do so. And, he really does believe in his team, and you can see that by, he's one of the few that didn't make a move this week. And so I think it shows that he's invested in his team and has made moves early. So,
yeah, Josh stood pat at the deadline, got a decent performance from McCaffrey last week, given the fact that he was on a bit of a pitch count. Javonte Williams continues to share time with Melvin Gordon, and it seems like the floor for both of them is there, right? Like, for the most part, they're probably going to get you close to double digits each game. And then the other, he had down weeks from guys like Pitts, from Debo, and managed to overcome that and still get a victory. So it was it was a good win for Josh. Frustrating for me to see Justin Herbert put up 32 points and to have guys like Keenan Allen and Eckler on my roster and have them put up basically nothing last week was tough to watch. But let's go. One more game that I'll just shout out here. I think this could have been a big week for Alec to steal a victory. Steve has a down week. Jamar Chase doesn't really do anything. Aaron Jones has that weird game that the Packers played with KC where nobody scores any points. And ultimately, it's just Alec too much in a hole after losing his boy Derrick Henry, having to start a guy like Gore. That's just not going to get it done, and the rest of his team didn't really pick it up. So that's a tough loss for Alec.
Totally, yeah. I think
that win would have been a win. There would have been huge for Alec.
For sure, yeah. I think. Especially with Alec got into the trade game this week, which is important for him to regain the momentum. But yeah, win here would have been massive to keep pace with the Alpha Peter, who was our high scorer of the week, put up 145. Alec having a down game from Pat Mahomes, who looked god awful against a very pedestrian Green Bay Packers defense. And so I think it was a weird week of football all around. And so hopefully
not only did Alec lose this, he also did not make it on the island any further. So
that is true.
Quick recap for us, John. Who's left on the island?
Okay, so heading into week 9, we had you, Mike, the Alpha Peter, Alec, and Steve. And so with Alpha Peter putting up a weekly high of 145, you scraping out 90 there, it really came down to the Blue Barracudas and Alec Loesch, and Alec is off the island. So it leaves Steve Mike, and the Alpha Peter left. And so I'd really like to not give Alpha Peter more of my money. And so if we could just avoid that, that would be great. Looking at points for, unfortunately, Alpha Peter is well out ahead of pretty much everyone. At 11:29. You're followed up at 10:66, and then the Blue Barracudas are at 10:49. So of the island left, we're gonna need a down week from Peter at some point to be able to get someone else to win the island. He won it last year. We would love to not have a repeat winner, but we'll see.
All right, let's move along to our power rankings. Quick power rankings update. The Alpha Peter taking over the number 1 slot, moving up 3 spots from number 4 last week. I don't think that's any surprise. Tied for the best record now. It makes a lot of sense. Josh holds fast at number 2. I come in now at number 3, moving down 2 spots from last week. Steve at number 4, down a spot from last week. Brendan holding strong at number 5. This has got to hurt. John here, after selling off most of his players, sits at number 6. How does that make you feel?
That's tough. Yeah. Playoff hopes are not looking good, but we're not looking good. But now they're probably a little bit better than. Anyway, that's tough.
It's tough. Alec is at number 7. Portugal the Ken sitting at number 8, just in front of Charlie. And Peter, Bill, and Kelly continue to round out the bottom. All right, that's your power rankings. But a lot more happened this week than just the football games that were played. We're going to talk about the trades. A couple pieces of news real quick. OBJ. What's the latest on OBJ?
It was a little bit of a snip-snap situation earlier today. Is he going to the Rams? Is he not going to the Rams? Did he sign? Did he not sign? Reports of yes, reports of no. But he did end up signing with the Rams, which, as discussed in the group chat, likely, more maybe non-football reasons for going to the Rams. It seems odd to me that he went to the Rams when he could have gone to somewhere like maybe Green Bay, where, he'd be peppered with targets. He'd clearly be the second best receiver there in Green Bay, and then the first best receiver but the Saints, the second best receiver, but probably third option with the Chiefs. Whereas with the Rams, he's maybe as good as Robert Woods, but I don't think so. If I had to rank those wide receivers at this point, it would be Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, and then OBJ over Van Jefferson. But it seems like an odd thing. If he really wants targets, then why go to the Rams there?
Well, you go to the Rams just to be out near, the California stars, the starstruck atmosphere of California. That was at least Charlie's hypothesis in the group chat. I don't think it's a bad one.
Makes sense to me.
I think you also have, the Rams, despite a couple blips recently, look pretty fucking good. So
for sure,
win that ship.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. I don't know. It's also interesting. I was listening to some football podcasts and just like, what's it looking like for him after this season's over? He signed a 1-year deal, right? And so, is he going to be able to prove his talent and or worth on the Rams if he's only getting maybe say three targets a game? Is he gonna get the big deal that he's most likely going to be looking for in the offseason? Probably not. Who's going to take a chance on him? Who's going to pay him 7-8 million. So it seemed like an odd move for him, but that might be because I have him in a couple leagues and I'm annoyed that he went to the Rams because his fantasy value is now shit. And does it reduce Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods' fantasy value at all?
I doubt it. I can't see maybe Woods a little bit, but the connection with Kupp, I think, is too strong.
What about Higbee? You think it diminishes?
Yeah,
Higbee's
maybe
value?
Higbee, maybe a little bit. Yeah. All right. One other piece. Well, two other pieces of news. One we've got down here. Chubb hits the COVID list. Godspeed to Chubb. He is going to be, that's a big loss.
Yeah, for Peter. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for the Alpha Peter, for sure.
Luckily for him, he's got plenty of guys to fill in behind him. But Chubb's still alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he's got Darrell Henderson and then Jonathan Taylor, to fill out his two running backs. Just like we were talking about with the Rams, with OBJ slotting in, how does that offense, fit him in and adjust? It's unlikely that Darrell Henderson takes a big hit, but you never know. There might be, maybe some goal line plays that are going to go a different way, and Henderson doesn't get those runs. And so we'll see. But yes, hopefully Chubb comes back quickly for Alpha Peter, and he's able to slot him back in. But yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches over there, and we'll talk about it more in a second. But yeah.
Only other thing I was just going to mention, there was the Dalvin Cook situation that cropped up. Civil case that was brought against him. From everything I've read, it doesn't look like it's going to affect him this season. And if anything, it would be a longer investigation that takes place down the road. I guess the NFL's kind of modus operandi here is when there's not a criminal charge, they really don't do jack shit. It seems like in terms of football, Cook is still going to be out there. Not that Kelly is really in the running much anymore after selling most of her team off, but she did beat me last week, so who am I to say?
True.
Yeah,
it's interesting. Right. I think there's just so many varying reports now of like what actually happened. And so it's hard to say. It's hard to say whether or not anything will come of it, but it seems as if not at the moment. So
for sure. Okay. Let's get to the meat and potatoes. All right. This week was the trade deadline. We saw a bit of movement from some of the top tier teams.
Sure.
I made some moves. Josh helped Pat, but Steve made some moves and Peter made some moves, as did Alec. And we can start with some moves that were made kind of earlier in the trade deadline. Steve making that move for Elijah Mitchell, which I think we touched on previously, but I think that's a good move for Steve, bringing Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, I mean, especially after this week where, you did see Jeff Wilson back, granted he'd only had a few days of practice, but you saw Elijah Mitchell really command the ball there, and his touches were up, his targets were up, and he had a pretty good game, if I recall. And so that's exciting. I mean, yeah, it seems as if, Elijah Mitchell is really taking over that number one spot at the moment. We'll see as Jeff Wilson gets healthier, maybe, but yeah. So
I mean, Elijah Mitchell has proven this year that if he's, he's a productive back when he's in there. And so for Steve to have another back like that, to bring in Saquon Barkley then alongside him, and to shore up a backfield that when you've got a guy like Antonio Gibson who's underperformed this year, depth is key. And Steve has kind of, with these two trades, created some depth at a position that I think he was lacking depth.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it was
like
impressive. Yeah,
for Steve. And giving up $6, I think, is about as good as you're going to do for a for a running back like Mitchell. It's comparable to what I gave up for. Well, we'll get into that in a second. Two other moves that happened. So Fitz trading for Amari Cooper. Trading $9 in draft capital? Did I have that right?
Yeah.
Okay. What do we think of this one?
Yeah, so I believe it was coming off of Amari Cooper's. Was it coming off Amari Cooper's big game? Because, yeah, I mean, you look at the beginning of the season when Amari Cooper, he had the first game, he blew up, right? And he was looking as if he was going to be a top 5 wide receiver, right? 13 for 139, 2 touchdowns. And then he got injured. I think he had a rib injury for several weeks. And then he has a great game there when he seems to be fully healthy at 8 for 122. He goes out, Fitz goes out and gets him. And then, the Dallas just put up a terrible performance against Denver last week. So I wouldn't judge him on that. But
yeah,
$9, that kind of set the tone. These two trades here early set the tone for, the trade window this year, right? We're $6 and $9, $6 for Elijah Mitchell, $9 for Amari Cooper. I thought we'd see a little bit of a regression, maybe like an adjustment, downwards a little bit. But I wasn't privy to any of those negotiations. I haven't heard anything about them. So, Kelly to get $9 there. I mean, that's a decent chunk of change for a wide receiver that has only gone above 70 yards twice in the season so far. So, and has 4 touchdowns. So it's to be seen, TBD. I don't know yet. I don't want to judge it too harshly, but
I'm going to judge it harshly. I don't like this nearly as much. One, I think the 9 is too much. 2, looking at okay. So if I'm Fitz, Brendan, looking at my team, the area that I'm most concerned about is not wide receiver, it's running back. And so I would have prioritized that position over wide receiver. I think you get some flexibility here with in your running back core with a guy like James Robinson, right, who has a fairly steady floor for you and is gonna generally get you some decent points. But outside of that, you're relying on an injured backfield in Cleveland and Dearness Johnson getting to play. And Dearness Johnson, no slouch when he plays. He is Dearness when he's playing. But Myles Gaskin in a 12-team league, he's not a guy you want to be starting going into the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, and Chris Carson there, you're looking
that's
at.
worrying. Chris Carson, hopefully coming back soon. We'll see. But I guess, he did shore up his running back a little bit by trading for Jeremy Nichols. And so that does.
We'll see. Help. I mean, I think maybe he has a decent floor, but his ceiling's pretty limited. They brought in AP, and AP had the goal line work there. I think he outtouched Jeremy Nichols too, and so you're not looking at maybe the workhorse running back that you saw, out of Derrick Henry there. You're looking at a pretty split backfield at this point in Tennessee.
Was Fitz in on the Zeke?
He was, yes. He I'm sure he's fine me outing that, but yes, yeah, he was in discussions for that, and so
he was sniffing around Zeke. Okay,
but unwilling to go up to that $10.
Which I don't fault him for that. I don't know that I would have gone for $10 either. And I guess there weren't a lot of other running backs that moved. So, I mean, Connor was out there, and we'll get to him in a second. But, yeah, so Fitz makes two moves. He makes the Jeremy Nichols move. McNichols, sorry, Jeremy. Jeremy McNichols move, and then the Amari Cooper move. Which, I don't know. The longer I look at Fitz's team, I guess I get the Amari Cooper move, right?
For sure, yeah.
There's certainly questions at wide receiver. With Antonio Brown banged up, there's certainly questions there.
I mean, he might not be back for a few weeks, and Julio Jones is doing his hammy thing, as per usual in the last few years, and so we'll see if he plays this week. But if Fitz hangs in there, he could have a couple guys like Chris Carson, Antonio Brown, and Julio Jones coming back healthy in the next week or two. And at that point, then this lineup looks very different and very dangerous heading into the final stretch of the regular season. And so.
For sure.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't, looking at Brendan's team, there's some worrying gaps for me, but
for sure.
Let's move on, because that might be pot kettle black, as they say, as we move to my team and the moves that I made this week. So I made two moves. We'll cover these quickly. I know nobody wants to hear about them. So Dak, I purchased Dak, I guess, from Steve for $6, and then earlier in the week, a day earlier, traded James Conner for $5 of draft capital for next year, spending a total of 11.
Yeah, I love you going out, you getting your ass kicked by James Conner, and then being like, you know what? If I can't beat him, buy him.
Win him. Yeah, exactly.
Great move, I think, on your part. James Conner he looks real good, and so, and he's got that starting role now, and so.
Yeah, the thing that did it for me was the Edmonds injury. Seeing Edmonds go down was a big red flag that went off, that it's time, I got to make an investment here. And my running backs, while I like my running back situation, generally, it's waiting for Clyde Edwards-Helaire to come back has been nauseating. Deciding who to plug in, in any given week between Kenyon Drake and Nyheim Hines was never very fun, although it does seem like, Drake is the clear guy there. At least the last couple of weeks, he's the guy that's really put up points for them. So I'm liking that. The other move.
Yeah, I like the Dak Prescott move. I think Jalen Hurts is a roller coaster, has a lot of talent. but for whatever reason, they can't seem to put a game plan together to consistently get wins there. And whenever you're riding that roller coaster, it just can seem it's so volatile. And for the most part, Dak Prescott will get you a floor of 15. And so which heading into this last stretch, you can't have that volatility at a position that your opponent can put up at least 20-25 points, and that puts you in such a hole. So I thought it was a great move. I thought $6 was a great price. So that kind of leads us into some of the moves Steve made. I thought Steve he was wheeling and dealing. I thought it was great. He hit me up earlier, last week about Tyreek Hill, and I was certainly waffling to the point that Steve clearly said, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get mine. And he did. He made some great moves here. And he got some money back, which I thought was really important. And so, earlier with Elijah Mitchell, and then him going to get Lamar Jackson and Saquon Barkley, paying big price, $20 there. But I think it was worth it. I think it was really worth it. When looking at his team now, it's hard to spot a hole there. So
I think there's two things here. So Steve identified what I think was clear last year was when or what became clear maybe this year after last year's trade deadline, when Kramer spent all that money, right? And for me, at least, in watching that, it was like, as somebody who didn't spend any money at the trade deadline last year, it was just kind of like, oh, Jesus, what the hell is Peter doing? And the obvious answer now is it doesn't matter, right? You go out and spend the money, especially if you think you have a chance to win. But also, it's clear that you can create a good team, one, within the contract structure, if you save the guys that you've got. And Steve's got some good players that he'll have on cheap contracts. I'm staring at Jamar Chase's name right now. Kadarius Toney, if he can ever turn it back on, might be a guy like that. So it seemed clear to me that Steve went out, made the right move, and spent the money he needed to spend. And I liked it. I like bringing in Barkley as well. Who knows what Barkley gives you rest of season, but if he can even be a reliable RB2 for Steve, that's all he really needs out of Saquon to be a contender.
Yep.
So I think.
Yeah, outside of that Tampa Bay there, you're looking at Philadelphia, Miami, the Chargers, and Dallas, all very subpar defenses. You're not staring at anything that's like too terribly daunting there. And Barkley could easily get you 12 to 15 points a game as a floor there if he's healthy.
For sure.
All
right.
But yeah, otherwise, I think getting Lamar Jackson and then turning around and selling Dak Prescott was a fantastic move. Essentially, facilitating a 3-team trade. I know it blew the nips off of Peter Kramer. He texted me separately saying, "What? How did he pull that off?" Incredible move. I think when I was texting with Steve last week, we were discussing it, and he said he liked his team. He thought they could go deep, and he was going to make some moves, and he ended up really doing that. And so, the wide receiver outside of Jamar Chase, I think could give him some troubles. You've got Tyler Lockett, the boom and bust guy, DJ Moore, just a Terrible quarterback situation there at the moment for DJ Moore.
They signed Cam today.
They did sign Cam, so that could be a bit of a boost there. And then Mike Evans, I think we're going to see Tom Brady start to rely on Mike Evans down the stretch
Mike Evans
here.
has quietly had a pretty good season. It's not like
totally.
He's been terrible.
Just up and down with a decent floor.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at this point now, I think we're going to start to see with Gronk still not coming back, with Antonio Brown injured, and seemingly for another week or two at least. We're going to start to see Mike Evans be heavily relied on there. And so I think Steve, was one of the reasons why I decided to punt this season, was because just even before the trades made, Steve's team looked really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what Steve did here, and it should pay dividends down the stretch. We'll see. All right, couple other people making moves. Alec, let's touch on Alec real quick. So Alec went out $10. Purchased Zeke, got rid of Allen Robinson, who was just like burning a hole in his bench and lighting garbage cans on fire for him. The move itself obviously necessitated by the Derrick Henry situation.
Mm-hmm.
I liked it. I mean, good for Alec. He's 6-3. You got to go for it, right?
Yep.
You got to make that move, and no matter the cost. And while I don't love Zeke, Zeke's had a good year, and
totally.
outside
of game one, he's had a great year.
Zeke's had a good year, and for a guy like Zeke, $10 I guess is about right, and he got his man. So I'm good on Alec. I still have concerns about Alec's bench. I think his bench is pretty thin. But I do, if his starters can stay healthy down the stretch, I think his team could give plenty of people fits in the playoffs.
Totally. And I think, I considered, I didn't talk to Alec about it, but I considered maybe trying to do a 1-for-1 swap with Kramer and Derrick Henry, which I think would have also boosted his running back situation there. But I think getting Zeke's going to give him, at least 10 every week. And, while Zeke hasn't scored touchdowns the last few games, I think that's going to come back into play. And then, if Zach Moss misses time in Buffalo, you're looking at Devin Singletary getting all of that work. I don't think, do they have another running back on the team? I don't really know. And then similar to what we were just talking about in Tampa Bay.
Well, Zach Moss was there, but yes, I would.
Well, Zach Moss is injured.
He
got injured. He went out. He went out.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I don't know who the hell else is there in Buffalo.
Outside of Moss and Singletary, I don't know if there is anyone. And so you're looking at that, and then I think
Ken, we haven't talked about Ken's team at all, so he probably hasn't listened this far. But Ken, if you heard us, let us know who are Buffalo's other running backs. Do they exist?
Yep.
Are they out there?
Yeah. Ken was in the discussions for Zeke and Tyreek Hill and Kittle a little bit, but unwilling to match the dollars being spent there, which makes sense. Him and I were talking about Zeke a bit, and here's where I fucked up, and Alex certainly pulled a fast one on me. The other lawyer out-lawyered this lawyer.
Well, he's been a lawyer for a little bit longer.
Yeah, he got me.
Yeah,
He works
yeah.
many more hours in a week than I do, that's for sure. And so I was like, oh, A-Rob, great. Like, okay, A-Rob could be a great keeper, especially if, he walks this year and ends up on a talented team, could be a great keeper. So I was like, perfect. I'll take him. We'll swap it out. He purchased.
You didn't realize how much you bought A-Rod for?
$31.
Yeah,
$31. There's no way I'm
Robinson.
keeping Allen Robinson. I'm like, God dang it. So you're gonna light a trash can on fire here. Yep.
That's
so
great.
That was the big blunder for me. Alec, good job there getting rid of that piece of trash and upgrading your roster. So all the best to you. Hopefully it works out and you win that division over Alpha Peter.
All right, let's hit Alpha. Let's hit him for a second. We'll go to him.
Yeah.
He earned it. He made his.
He
moves.
Definitely earned it.
Kramer made a few moves here. He brought in Russell Wilson. I was also looking at Russell Wilson. All right. He brings the Russell Wilson thing. I guess I don't fully understand for
I'll tell you.
For Kramer. So I would love to get some insight.
For Peter Kramer, his strategy last year, his strategy this year. Looking at his roster, did he need Tyreek Hill with Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs? And
I understand that part of it.
No, but
I understand.
Did he need Kittle? Yeah, sort of. I mean, Gronk comes back healthy, could be just as good as Kittle. And did he need Russ Wilson? No, with Kyler Murray, but those are three players now that aren't on your team, that aren't on Ken's team, that aren't on Alec's team, that aren't on Steve's team, that aren't on Fitz's team. And, Peter's thought process there is, I will pay that money to ensure that I don't have to play against Russell Wilson or Tyreek Hill or Kittle down the stretch, which makes sense.
Sure. Okay. So that part I understand. What I don't understand is the Russell Wilson of it. I guess Russell Wilson just doesn't really, so I wouldn't have, I guess my thing was that I wouldn't have been concerned about a guy like Russell Wilson, who's coming off really the first biggest injury of his career, with a team that looks like it's not going to make the playoffs, in a division that's very good, or pretty damn good. I guess I just don't see Russell Wilson having a great end of the year. And I mean, maybe for Pete, it's worth it. Clearly he felt that it was. All the other moves, like the George Kittle move, the Tyreek Hill move, I get that, definitely. And I mean, Tyreek Hill is certainly somebody he's not somebody you don't want your opponent to have. He's somebody you want to have
for sure. On
your roster. Despite a fairly pedestrian year for Tyreek Hill, he's still a guy you want on your roster. I guess for me, it's just like you've got Kyler Murray. Derek Carr is, a serviceable backup.
He just picked him up. He had Taysom Hill last week as a backup.
So why, I get it. What I do want to say for Peter, having looked at this today, Peter's going to have, I think, around $50, maybe $55 in draft money next year.
Yeah, let me pull it up. He sent me a little photo there, and
It's I believe it's around 55, maybe
yeah,
a
it's
little
gonna be
bit more.
close. That's for sure. Yeah, he'll have 2022 of $44
There you
in
go.
draft money to if he keeps Jalen Waddle. So
Yes.
he's
Okay.
got
So that
Chubb,
was
Taylor,
that's how I
Murray.
got 55 because
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle will be $11.
Yep.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So if he
So
keeps Jalen Waddle, he's not going to keep Darrell Henderson, I guess. Well,
yeah,
Darrell
he's on a
Henderson's going
1
to
year.
come up. He's coming up on the restricted free agent auction this year.
Yeah. So
All
well,
right.
a chance to keep him, he won't. But yeah, it's gonna be close. But then again, I mean, he didn't have much more than that this year, and so
No, and it's worked out. So
yeah.
who am I? Who am I to say no?
So yeah.
All right.
But he went out and spent it. I think playing keep away is just as important. And looking at some of the contenders, such as you have 189 next year. Josh.
No. Those don't include
Well, yeah,
current
without keepers.
contracts.
Yeah, without contracts. Josh, who's very much in it, came out ahead at $203, not including contracts, for next year, which is great. So, it may come down to it where maybe, yeah, if Peter wins again, that ensuring that your opponent doesn't get those players may be just as important as going out and getting the guys that you really think you need. And Peter's depth here, I think, is better than anyone's. His bench, I think, is better than anyone's at this point, and so it's.
I don't love Pete's depth. I mean, Peter's depth is good. The Chubb, so Chubb is obviously he's got 3 top tier running backs and nobody else. Adrian Peterson is an unproven commodity, and
No,
I'm not listing Adrian Peterson as a depth guy.
No,
but rostering 3 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends is going to take up some space. And while Jalen Waddle, I agree, has been pretty good this year and looks like a keeper going forward, the quarterback situation in Miami is a goddamn mess. And Miami in general is a goddamn mess. And Jacoby Myers is nothing to sneeze at. So as much as Pete wants to say, he wanted to keep Tyreek Hill away from his, opponents. He needs a guy like Tyreek Hill. He needs another wide receiver there. Maybe the secret here is, and I'm just going to do this little takedown of Pete's team right now. Maybe the secret here is that Stephon Diggs and Justin Jefferson
underperforming.
While big names and while certainly guys that could pop off at any moment, and Tyreek Hill, while a big name and certainly a guy who's popped off at any moment, are 3 wide receivers who have had fairly pedestrian years this year, and
for sure.
have underperformed what we thought they would do. So I disagree with the assessment that Pete's got a lot of depth. I think his depth is sus. But
all right. If you come at the king, Mike, you best not miss.
I'm coming for him this year. I am coming for him this year. All right. We got a couple big games we're going to hit real quick this week. So the do or die for Ken. Hopefully die. We'll see. I'm hoping to just put him out of his misery.
It is do or die at this point. I mean, I think if you lose this game, and even if Charlie wins, which he's playing Josh, so it's going to be a bit of a tougher ask at that point. Now, you're going to get into a situation where maybe Ken rattles off some wins, but will it be enough to, it's going to come down to the division, right? Where he's going to have to beat Charlie. He's going to have to beat Kelly. He's going to have to get at least one more win in that stretch. It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be really difficult. And, this week, looking at you, maybe, oh man, Mark Andrews, come on.
Ken has a better team than both Charlie and Kelly.
Without a doubt. Yeah. His running back situation is. He's got Mixon on bye, so that's tough. But
he's got a better team than Charlie and Kelly.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think there's a good chance Ken makes playoffs. It's going to be tough. I don't see Charlie beating Josh this week. I also don't see Ken beating me this week, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's a big game for him. And then the other game you identified as a big game would be Fitz versus Alec. This is a big one for both of them. Fitz needs this win to keep pace. And quite frankly, for Alec, for a guy who, just spent some money bringing in a back after losing the heart and soul of his team, he needs this win too.
Yep. Yeah, they both are staring down, a tie in their division, with Fitz being 5-4, along with Steve, and then Alec being 6-3, along with Peter. And you don't want to fall behind at this moment. You still want to be able to compete for the outright win in your division. And so after making some moves, you definitely want to come out with a W at that point. Looking at this matchup, it's tough to call, but I think Fitz is going to come out ahead here.
You think so? Because I think Fitz better be praying to God, Yahweh, Moses, Jesus, etc., that Myles Gaskin really turns it on right now, because this is not what you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. It's 6-3 halftime. That is rough. That's not getting it done for anyone in the fantasy world. But it's that stack of Stafford and Cup has been deadly, and so we'll see. But yeah, I think both of these guys could use a big W to keep pace, and so looking at it. Otherwise, we're looking at bottom of the barrel match up there between Kelly and Bill, and then. A couple of people that went out and made some big moves, playing against some people that sold. So,
yep. All right.
Should be an interesting week.
It will be. We are going to leave it there. Good show. Good job by you. And we'll be back next week. Kind of see where we're all what we're all doing. A couple weeks out of the playoffs next week.
Yeah, we're staring down the barrel at the end of the season here. So
we're getting close. All right.
Yeah.
Brother John, good show as always for all you RTFers out there. We will see you soon. Adios.
Sus.